What's up, Covalence friends? Today we're going to be going through logging your users in with magic links. Now, a magic link is just basically a link sent via email that the user can click and instantly log them into your website or your web application. And I'm keeping this video very short, a lot of pseudocode in here. We're going to be using databases, but we're not actually going to be, I'm not going to be sending anything to a database. But again, if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments below. But like I said, we're just going to be kind of showing the process of how magic links work. So hope you enjoy. Let's get right into it. All right, so we're starting off with our super simple Express template. If you want to link to this repo in particular, you can actually get it in the description below. Otherwise, you can use your own template or you can just build your own Express template from scratch. But essentially what we're going to do is we have these routers and we have these user routes here, and we're going to create a /magic route. So we are going to have our /magic. We can get rid of this. And basically what we're going to do in here is we're going to create the URL that's going to be our magic link. And we're going to essentially just kind of log it to the console. And we're not going to actually send the email or anything like that. We're going to just kind of let you guys kind of take that and run with it. But we're going to generate the URL that you would need. And we're going to kind of go through the pseudo logic, right? And so let's first import crypto. We'll import stars crypto from crypto. And we're going to use crypto to basically generate the token, right? And so to generate the token, what we're going to do is we're going to say const token equals crypto dot create. Actually, it's just random bytes, not create. So random bytes and the size. So we're going to pass in 32. And we're going to actually then call the toString method on it, and the encoding is going to be hex. So we're actually going to get a hex string that's 32 random bytes long, and we're going to use that as our magic link token, right? So every magic link is going to need a token in it, and the actual token itself, right around here, you'd want to actually check your database and check your database for for a row with this token. So essentially you could say, while token exists. So if you want to do some pseudocode, it would be something like, let existing equals, tokens dot find, where, token is token, right? So basically that would just kind of be some pseudocode. It would be, in a wait statement since we're querying the database. And, if you're using something like SQLize or something like, you'd do basically be like, like a find one here. So basically this would be it. And then you can say, you could change this to be a let, and you could just say, while, existing. Can't find it because it's commented out, but you can say while existing or while not existing. You essentially just do token equals, and you would generate a new random token, and then you would again just call existing equals this, right? And we're obviously going to comment this all out, but basically this would be to essentially make sure that your token is unique. And there is potential for some race conditions if you have a bunch of people generating this at the same time, but most of the time everybody isn't requesting magic links all at once. You could also use something like UUID v4 instead of crypto.randomBytes. That might generate a little bit more of a unique value. So it doesn't really matter what you use here, whether it's just random bytes or a GUID. You could encode and decode a value. And so if you didn't want to store this in a database, I recommend using a database for this. I recommend actually using a database to store the token value. But if you couldn't do that, if there's an inability to actually have this, maybe there's a requirement where you can't create a table for this, you could actually use crypto, and then you could create a cipher, and you could encode and decode the value. And so you'd actually encode the user ID. You would encode, everything you would need to actually log them in, and then you'd send that to their email address. And if they have that link correctly, you could decode that token and you wouldn't actually need to look up any values from the database. So basically in this database value, what you're actually going to be storing is you're going to be storing the user ID, you're going to be storing an expires at, and you're going to be storing this token, right? And so you're going to use this token to grab the entry, look up the user ID, make sure it's not expired, and then log that person in. And basically, if you wanted to do an encode decode value without having a database value, what you do is you actually encode the user ID and expires at, and that would be inside the token itself. You could encode actually other information if you needed it as well. And so the idea behind that is that you wouldn't actually need a database value for this, but I'll do a whole nother video on this at some point. And honestly, I don't really love doing that. I think having the database values are better. Because, for instance, you could have multiple tokens active at the same time, where if you do something like this, you could actually first check, like whether or not, this particular person needs this magic link. And so essentially this value here is going to be based on, the user ID is going to be based on a value passed up. So when you go to this, when you post to this /magic route, it'd be something like const body equals request.body. And then you'd probably have something like an email address, body.email, right? And then so with this email address, you'd actually look, const user equals, await users.find1, where email equals email, right? So you would do something like this, and then you'd say like, if not user, or if not user, then it's invalid. Otherwise, you'd actually use this user to store the user ID and this token together in a magic link, right? And so that's what you would essentially need for a magic link. All you really need is the email address. If it's valid, then you send an email to the user. You store this token. So now you would just store token in DB, with user ID. And so you would store this, and expire time, right? So you would store this token and you'd send the email. So just to say send email with link. So let's generate the link real quick. Typically you'd probably use something along the lines of like a process.env.url that you could change, if you wanted to store your actual domain name in there. So you probably have a custom domain, and so you'd probably have some sort of custom URL that you want to use, and you want it to be editable or changeable. And so more or less, you'd want to be making sure, let's just leave this actually. You'd want to make sure that you can actually change this. So typically what you would do is after you create your token, you'd have your, magic URL, and let's just say this is going to equal, for our particular case, we're going to just use localhost here, but normally you would do something like process.env.url or front-end URL or something like that, right? But for our case, we're just going to hardcode HTTP, //localhost 3000, and then we're going to say /magic, and we're going to say the token afterwards, right? So this is the actual magic URL with, button that takes you, or with link, I guess. It could be a button link, but with link containing, magic URL. All right, so this would be the email that we're sending. Now for us, we're just going to log the magic URL. So we're going to get this URL, and then we're going to make sure that it works, right? All right, so we have this URL built, and what we're going to do is we're going to create this route that we're creating here. So we can go into our routers, we can go into our index, and obviously this magic route is /API/v1/users/magic. That's what generates this. And so we want to make sure that in our main route, we actually have a /magic as well. So we have our /API route here, and we want a /magic route as well. And it's actually /magic, with a token variable as well. So in here, we can actually create our function. Now you could break this out into a separate router, kind of like we have our API here. It probably is smart, other than the fact that it doesn't really matter since we're only going to be using this one function here. So it's up to you how clean you want to make it. But let's go ahead and just write it in this file for now. And so we have /magic/token. So we can actually just console.log our request.params.token here, just to make sure that exists. We can even just grab the token as well. So const tk equals request.params.token, and we can just then console.log tk. All right, so we'll just make sure that exists. But basically what you would do with this now is that you would actually, just to write out the kind of code for the DB, you would grab, our row equals, await tokens.find1, where token equals tk. And then that should give you the user ID. Should, if row exists, right? If not row, then what we're going to be doing is basically grabbing the user ID, and we'd be logging this person in, right? And so grab user ID off row, and at this point we can either set cookie values, cookie value, and render index, or you could actually send a value back that is going to give you the access token, right? And so basically what I usually like to do is I like to have two routes. So I'll have like this route for actually logging somebody in. Otherwise, you might want to have an actual API route as well for like parsing the magic token. And it depends on how your app is actually operating. If you're basing it off of cookies, if you're just doing a web app or a website, then I would just have this route because you don't need the other one. Now, if you have a mobile app or some sort of need for JWT or OAuth, then you aren't actually using cookies, so you can't actually log this person in on the back end. You have to send the token back to the front end. And so I would do an API route that would be /API/v1/magic, and that would actually send a JSON response with your access token, right? So that access token would be encoded, for your user. And in our case here, this would be for setting cookies. So we want to make sure, if you haven't watched my auth video, check that out. It goes into, using access tokens and cookies, and this kind of the, I'll actually provide the link in the description below. I highly recommend you watch that just so you kind of know what I'm talking about here. But in our case, we're just going to worry about the case when we are using cookies, because that is typical for a website, right? All right, so this would be for cookie values. You'd set your cookie value and you'd render your index. And when you render your index, because your cookie values are now set, you can actually go ahead and just know that you're logged in. So in this particular case, basically you'd set cookie values. If you haven't, again, watch the auth video. It shows you exactly how to set those cookie values. But in our case, we are just going to go ahead and we're going to just send this file, and all should be good. We should be logged in, and if that cookie value is set, we'd be good. So I just want to make sure that this works. We're going to make sure that we log this TK value here, and if all is good, then that would essentially satisfy the requirement of logging yourself in with that magic link, right? All right, so let's go ahead and just run this real quick. So we're going to open up a new terminal. By the way, I've already npm installed, so we can just run npm run dev. All right, so we're listening on port 3000. Let's go ahead and open up a browser. And we're going to just simulate hitting that API request. So we're going to say localhost 3000 /API/v1/users/magic. And it's going to say invalid route because we messed something up. Let's see. What do we have? We have API/v1/users. Oh, it's because it's a post. That's why. All right, so we would actually need this to be a post request because we would need to pass up the actual email here, but I'm going to change this to a get just so that we can simulate it real quick. But again, I'm just not going through the bother of actually having to write front-end code to use a fetch request to send a post request, right? And so let's just, for now, not worry about that. We're just going to go ahead, do the get request, and we don't actually send anything back, so it's going to load forever, but we did actually get something here. So for right now, let's just, so that it doesn't load forever, let's just, res dot send JSON, send, let's just do res.json for now. Res.json, and we'll just send back the token. Why not? All right. So again, let's go ahead. All right, so we got our token here as well. So this is our token. We could actually send back magic URL. Why don't we just do that? We'll send it back as URL. All right, and so now when that loads, we get URL and we see it's localhost 3000, magic, and our token, right? So this is a 32-byte token in hex, and we're going to now copy this, and we're gonna pass this token in. We get hello world, so it rendered the index correctly, and when we pop open here, we see that we actually logged the token. So that token is being logged here, and we know that we're actually logged in. So if we want, we can just make sure that we can say, you know, logged in. All right, and we're just going to do this one more time. Refresh, logged in. So we're good. So that's pretty much it. It's that simple. I wanted to try and make this video as short as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below, because again, a lot of this was pseudocode, but I'm assuming that most of you guys already know how to do this. And if you don't, watch our other videos or ask the questions below. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope it was easy enough to understand. Again, I know I kind of skipped over a lot of the steps there. I just provided pseudocode for it, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Check out our membership course, because we have a lot of content that's just all available, comes with the membership itself. That's also in the description below. Check out our merch store, and definitely let us know if there's anything about this video you don't like or you need more explanation on, because again, I wanted to keep it short. I wanted to keep it super simple, and there's a lot of stuff like sending emails and things like you know, actually interacting with the database that I don't include in here, but we have it all available in our content, in our membership. So feel free, check it out, and you know, let us know how you like it. See you soon.